Hello, and welcome to Right Hype Podcast, where we talk about hype done right. I'm your host, Gavan, and today we're going to talk about fashion sustainability, which is an area of fashion that I'm extremely passionate about. The fashion industry operates with so much mystery. It's really hard to understand how it works, much less how to make it more sustainable. In this episode, I'm going to peel back the layers of the fashion industry so that it's not so mysterious and layer on some sustainability so you walk away informed and empowered. The fashion industry supply chain is an actor network, meaning it involves different people with different skills. It requires a lot of communication and coordination for things to move efficiently. At the beginning of the supply chain are designers, artists, and creatives whose brain powers a brand's creative direction. They create the concepts to sell to consumers, which determines what type of materials and how much are needed. Once the initial ideas are conceived and the samples are made, then it moves on to production and the lead time begins. The lead time for a collection is how long it takes from extraction to in-store delivery. Lead times for collections traditionally take up around 2 to 6 months for larger orders before it's in your hand, but with a fast fashion brand, that can be cut down to weeks. Samples move on to production where the natural resources are extracted, processed, dyed, cut, and sewn. Once the materials are ready, someone puts it all together into its final form, adding buttons, trims, and little details. Then it goes from the warehouse to the retail stores for distribution. In between each step, there are people handling the goods. And in the end, another group of people have to market and sell the products. The chain isn't over once the product is in your hands. Tailors, cobblers, jewelers, they all come into play when clothes, footwear, and jewelry need to be repaired. They play an integral role in maintaining the form and function of a product. Finally, there are thrift stores, donation centers, and bargain bins where clothes go to find a new home until they are eventually recycled into new material or landfilled. The supply chain is a long, fragmented network of suppliers, each doing a specific job. And sitting on top of all of this are brands. And then there's you, the consumer. From fast fashion to eco-friendly fashion brands, the choices that you make as a consumer have far-reaching consequences. As you navigate the fashion landscape, it's crucial to pause and reflect on the impact we have on the industry. Now, sustainability tracks all the way back to social movements in the 1970s, when concerns around pollution, resource depletion, and social justice emerged. There was fear that clean air, water, fertile soil, and non renewable energy sources were being overexploited or mismanaged and jeopardized the quality of life or the future for generations. This also led to an increase about the interconnectedness of environmental, social, and economic issues. From an environmental perspective, sustainability is the ability for biological systems to remain healthy, diverse, and productive over time. In the context of social sustainability, it is to uplift people from poverty, improve access to education and healthcare, and improve inclusion practices that empower all members of society. From an economic perspective, sustainability involves prosperity without causing irreparable environmental harm or exacerbating social inequalities. From a general human race perspective, sustainability is meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Striking a balance between economic growth, social equity, and environmental responsibility is crucial for building resilient societies for generations. By adopting sustainable practices, resources will replenish over time and regenerate, and so that other generations may benefit. Those are all the definitions of sustainability. Now, I want to focus on fashion sustainability. Fashion sustainability aims to minimize the negative environmental and social impacts associated with the industry by designing and disposing of clothes to improve the long term eco balance, social responsibility, and economic progression. It goes beyond the materials used in clothing. It encompasses the entire life cycle of a garment, from production to consumption and disposal. This involves contributing factors like the sourcing of materials, ethical manufacturing practices, reducing waste, and promoting circular economy. The circular economy is an economic model designed to minimize waste and make the most of resources by keeping products, materials, and resources in use for as long as possible. It's about making clothes that benefit not only us, but also the planet and the people involved in the process of making them. Fashion is tough on the environment. The textile industry is a heavily polluting, resource intensive sector with a sizable carbon footprint. Fashion production alone makes up 10% of the world's carbon emissions, drying up water resources and polluting rivers and streams. Fashion production alone makes up 10% of the world's carbon emissions, drying up water sources and polluting rivers and streams. For example, cotton, a common material found in clothes, can have a very water intensive process. A t-shirt and a pair of jeans requires 2,000 liters of water. That's enough drinking water to last you 2 years. If the water isn't handled correctly, then it pollutes local water sources and seeps into the soil of the crops we eat. And each step requires transportation, and that releases carbon into the atmosphere. So at every step, there is some form of environmental impact before it even gets into the hands of the consumer. It's not your fault. It's estimated that the industry produces 150 billion garments annually, resulting in 84% of greenhouse gas emissions occurring upstream production. Well, what about disposal? What happens when you're done with your clothes? Where does it go? How does that impact our environment? Well, roughly 45 billion clothes are never sold or worn. So those mostly end up in a landfill or incinerated. Burning or landfilling new and used clothes releases more greenhouse gases emissions into the atmosphere and the toxins into the water supplies and impacts the health and culture in the surrounding areas. Plus, it typically costs around $50 per ton to dispose of textiles, equaling hundreds of millions of dollars per year just to throw away clothes, showing the clear economic case to reduce our waste. Even with the rising cost of inflation, the process still has not changed, and they continue to be obstacles to bottom line growth and a burden to the planet. This is why overproduction is widespread in the apparel sector. It's important to keep these things in mind as you're shopping because there is hope. Many fashion brands are adopting sustainable practices, incorporating eco friendly materials like organic cotton, recycled polyester, and innovative fabrics made from sustainable resources. By supporting these brands, we can collectively shift the industry toward a more eco friendly, conscious future. Beyond environmental concerns, the fashion industry faces scrutiny for social issues and labor practices. The garment and footwear industry stretches around the world, and with sweatshops, unsafe working conditions, and unfair wages, they have plagued the industry for far too long. Mental models are an internal representation of the external reality, and there is this mental model that factory workers are less than the average human. It resembles slavery in that it carries the conditions we looked down upon in the past. The prioritization of people buying over people making suggests that giving the people who make the clothes power could reduce the amount of money brands make. Low wages and a lack of career support impacts a worker's sense of fulfillment and keep factory workers in poverty. Women also earn less than men, leading to sexual harassment and exploitation. Brands are still making large orders that need to be filled, and factory workers are put under pressure to fill those orders faster now. Lead times are no longer planned in months, but in weeks, which means suppliers scramble to take on orders. Short-term contracts hinder labor workers' ability to unionize in fear of retaliation, and long hours and overtime with no additional pay is wage theft and impacts their well-being. Toxic waste materials also come into contact with workers, and that impacts their health too. What could fix all of this? Corporations and governments addressing the imbalance in power by tackling social issues and promoting justice. There is a growing movement advocating for fair labor practices and transparency in the social supply chain. The need for information about factories involved in production for global brands has become painfully clear in the recent years. There is a growing trend of global apparel companies adopting supply chain transparency, starting with publishing names, addresses, and other important information about factories manufacturing their branded products. Codes of conduct are now more widespread than before, all thanks to the International Labor Organization, or the ILO. Most brands have a code of conduct. These codes cover child labor, forced labor, working hours, occupational health and safety, and non-discrimination. Although they can be subjective or non-explicit regarding the expectations, it's progress. A key aspect of this progress is freedom of association, having the ability to form unions and demand better conditions. Disclosing worker factory data is also a signal of good faith and is a resource for unions and activists to fight for the rights of factory workers. Unions can be a helpful avenue for getting factory workers the help they need when global supply chains are opaque. Consumers often lack meaningful information about where their apparel is made. Case in point, brands have a hard time communicating their progress because they have no way of tracking it. When brands are certified like fair trade, consumers can support these brands. It's about making informed decisions and demanding accountability from fashion companies we engage with. Some call this the slow fashion movement. In recent years, the slow fashion movement has gained momentum and challenges the fast-paced disposal nature of traditional fashion by encouraging thoughtful consumption. The New York Times coined the term fast fashion in 1980. Fast fashion is characterized by rapid and constant production cycles to meet consumer demand. A demand that was cultivated by fashion brands to change consumer behavior and make people want more. It relies on producing large quantities quickly at a lower cost, and for that reason, the items are often considered disposable. It also focused on short-lived trends that quickly cycle in and out of style, contributing to its disposability. It's also associated with high environmental impact due to resource-intensive processes, chemicals, and the generation of large amount of textile waste. Slow fashion, on the other hand, emphasizes quality over quantity, timeless designs, and a commitment to sustainability, contributing to longer lasting garments. Slow fashion often releases fewer collections each year and prioritizes ethical and sustainable practices, such as fair labor and a commitment to craftsmanship. Slow fashion also strives to minimize environmental impact by using sustainable materials, reducing waste, and adopting eco-friendly practices. And slow fashion brands report on their impact in a clear, concise way so that it's understandable. Not 30 long page reports that nobody can understand with no clear point. Overall, slow fashion is a response to the negative environmental and social impacts associated with fast fashion. It advocates for more sustainable, ethical, and mindful approach to clothing production and consumption. The idea of slow fashion lends itself nicely to building a sustainable wardrobe. It's a shift in mindset, from chasing trends to building a curated closet that reflects your personality and values. By investing in fewer, well-made pieces that withstand the test of time, you can reduce the demand for rapid production and consumption. Alternatively, you may decide to go thrifting instead of buying new products each time, and shopping from secondhand marketplaces online, where people post products that they're ready to let go. The global secondhand market is expected to grow by 127% by 2026, and that's 3 times faster than the apparel market. The secondhand market offers the reuse of garments that last longer and can be resold multiple times. Resale is perhaps the most straightforward option for brands to engage in circularity. It's gaining appeal amongst business with sustainability goals they have to meet. Technological innovation also plays a pivotal role in sustainability. Advancements in technology can produce solutions to environmental challenges. Biofabrication utilizes renewable resources and reduces the reliance on traditional manufacturing processes that may have negative environmental impacts. Upcycling involves repurposing or transforming discarded or unwanted materials into new products of higher value. Now, there is a paradox to innovation. Innovation often has unintended consequences. Many of the innovations developed by the tech industry can be applied to mitigate environmental issues, but they are not free from environmental costs. Embracing innovation with a focus on sustainability ensures society leaves a legacy of progress rather than a trail of environmental degradation. These innovations reimagine how fashion can coexist harmoniously with the planet and pave the way for a more sustainable future. As a consumer, you can drive change within the fashion industry. Your choices, preferences, and demand shapes the market. You can start small. Start with your circle of friends and family. Shop locally or donate your clothing. By supporting sustainable brands, recycling clothes, and embracing secondhand fashion, you can contribute to a more eco-conscious and ethical landscape. Explore eco-fashion certifications. Find local and independent designers. And if you're really into it, get a used sewing machine and learn how to create your own clothes. When you're ready to shop from a sustainable brand, you can start by looking at these. The first one that comes to mind is Pangea. They're a global collective that is committed to crafting earth-friendly wardrobe solutions for all. Behind each Pangea piece is an ever-refining set of eco-conscious practices in plant-based fiber sourcing, natural dyeing techniques, and textile manufacturing. Stella McCartney is a luxury option. She's committed to ethical production processes. And somewhere in between luxury and everyday essentials is Ghani. This brand redefines contemporary notions of luxury with its purpose-led, environmentally conscious approach to ready-wear. There are many ways to make better choices in fashion. Growing up, fashion sustainability came in the form of hand-me-downs from my older cousins, repurposing old t-shirts to wipe down surfaces, or giving away clothes to the less fortunate. My parents taught me that nothing should go to waste and that everything has a purpose. Sustainability is increasingly becoming a core consideration for the apparel industry, affecting strategy, operations, workforce engagement, and connection to consumers and communities. At its core, fashion sustainability is responsible stewardship, acknowledging that actions today have a profound impact for the future. By embracing sustainability, you contribute to a future where fashion not only reflects your style, but also your commitment to well-being of the planet and others. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review it wherever you listen to your podcast. And sign up for the Right Hype newsletter so you never miss when a new episode drops. You can find all the details mentioned today in the show notes. Thank you for listening. Peace out, fam.